looking at the first commission, which was led by Samuel Kivoitu, they were kicked out by Parliament, and then Hassan Esak, we saw what happened, that after a lot of pressure and demonstrations from the opposition side, then they just resigned. But now we saw the same. There were demonstrations actually even after before the repeat polls in 2017, but today we are talking about Chebukati completing a 6-year term. How has he survived, Mondalo?
I think apart from being extremely lucky, I would say that, Chebukati came in at a time, first of all, like my friend has said, that it was 6 months to election. And in the event that Chebukati was not the chair, the detriments were going to be too much. So there was a lot of need for him to continue serving, especially after the election, because we were going to head into a constitutional crisis, despite the fact that the court said he wouldn't be able to have the election. The constitution does not really envision the case whereby, supposing he was to be dropped out at that time, and yet he's supposed to be in office for quite some time before to hold the election. So that was able to make him survive, at least the first time that the opposition at the time wanted him out. And then the second bit of his survival, to me, came through the handshake. Because at the time when the opposition was supposed to really push for a fresh commission, Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, then President Uhuru Kenyatta, started working together. So then there was a lot of issue about to what extent can opposition really push the instruments and the agencies within the government. So I think that was also able to make him survive, because there was no way the opposition was going to push the ejection of Chebukati, who the sitting government had no problem with, and yet the two were having a handshake and therefore seemingly working together. So I think those two instances were able to make him survive. And the three, I think also he has some unique ability to just ignore the noises. And like because the first time so many commissioners were able to, they could not take the noise. I think he has quite some thick lawyer skin that takes some noises that pass by.
And you know, after the nullification of the 2017 election, many people thought that this now is a strong base to have the commission kicked out. But again, he survived. Mula, what are your thoughts?
My issue is this. I think there are 2 points. One is the application of the rule of law. Remember, commissioners have security of tenure. So for you to remove a commissioner, prove it. Or get article, I think it's Article 256, which talks about the question of the issue about the removal of Article 6, sorry, of on the integrity, about the removal of anybody, a public officer. You have to go out and set out a very clear case against the public officials, especially one who has security of tenure. And remember, that is exactly what happened with the Issa Hassan Commission. Nobody could come out with anything. There was no court case, there was nothing, there's no criminal liability on them, despite all the issues which have been raised, and they had to find for a handshake of sorts to get them out, really to wheel them out of office. But they had to pay them their benefits. It's the same, it was going to happen to Chebukati. You had to find fault with what he had done. So the fact that in 2017, there are people who have gone to court to even try to challenge why is Chebukati still in office, nothing has been able to be found out. So again, by the application of the rule of law, he was able to stay in office because nothing forced him out. Secondly, I'll agree with him on the point of stamina. I think the man has stamina. Remember, yesterday he said something which was very contrary to the other 3 commissioners. They went into hiding in an unknown location, and then he asked, he should tell you where I was. I was in my house. He went nowhere. He ran nowhere. Everybody knew where he was. Anybody wanted to look for him, he said, I was waiting for that door to open. Whoever was coming with a bazooka or anything, I mean, I was ready for them. So that thick skin, the idea that in such an environment, a volatile environment as our elections have become, a person staying the course and steering it until the end, I think that's good. It's stamina. So he has that staying power.
And so what is really the future of IEBC? Today we are talking about 3 commissioners retiring, 3 already resigned, and the one that is remaining, her fate again hangs in a balance. Mundalo, what is the future? What are Kenyans looking at?
I think the beautiful thing is that at least the chair and I think plus the 2 commissioners, I'm not sure about the other 2, has what would be termed temporary incumbency for the case of the president.
Yeah.
So at least we are not in a lacuna per se until we have a new commission. But I foresee extremely challenging times going forward, especially in the selection of even the committee to decide who then becomes the commission of the IEBC. And this is going to be quite a turmoil, and it's going to be a muddy process, because today the political players are now aware that the most important person in the IEBC is the chair. So there is going to be a lot of interest on who sits in the commission, and there's going to be a triple the pressure of the interest on who then becomes the chair of the IEBC commission. So despite the fact that we keep saying that the IEBC is independent, but when we come to the reality of the politics of our country, the independence is very little, because the political interests are actually at play all the time during the selection and during their term in office. I think it's high time the country should have a conversation on just accepting that the IEBC is a totally political office, and the appointment of the commissioners goes totally the political way, because whichever way, politics still has an influence on it.
Yeah. And Mule, as we speak, when should the new commission be in place as per the constitution? And as Mundalo is saying that, yeah, they will still be in office, but I believe their powers are limited.
Well, I agreed. Mundalo is very correct in terms of the limited nature of the powers that will be granted the chair in the transition process. The process begins once we have a select panel, and on Thursday, Senate is sitting to be able to finalize on the framework, not the composition of the panel, because there were quite a number of issues. The previous panel was declared also unconstitutional, so they have sat down. They are working on a new model of the composition, where we even have the political, one of the interests that Mundalo is talking about, the political interest. They have brought in the political parties liaison committee, where the one which houses all the political parties, to have a representative in the panel. They have still retained the religious organization, the Law Society of Kenya, PSC. They are still members of that panel. So the play is at that, and I agree with him that the interests are going to be in that panel. But the process in terms of going forward is that once the panel is in place, within 7 days they are supposed to declare the vacancies. They are supposed to give a period in which applications can begin. And they have been given timelines within which they should be able to receive those applications, vet the applications, and be able to come up with a short list which is given to Parliament and then thereafter the President. There is a small lacuna, I think, in the law in terms of how much time Parliament and President can be able to take in that appointment, which is the problem we had in the previous one. Remember, the select panel also delivered final short lists to both Parliament and the President, and it took nearly 3 years before those people were appointed. So we still have a problem in terms of how much time is taken by Parliament and the President in terms of dealing with the list which is submitted to them by the select panel. And that's where the horse trading is usually happening. So the names come in. We have about 30 names, or we have about 3 names. I think for the commission, for the chair, is usually 2 or 3 names, and then they are handed over. Then they are supposed to be the president is supposed to go through those names before he can be able to give his preference to Parliament. So that process is where I think we still have a problem, and there are very many observers who have said we need to change the way, we need to reduce the presidential powers in the appointment of the commission, so that if the names are taken to Parliament, the Parliament then makes the decisions and then it just sends to the President for assent. Not that the President has to send something, his preferences back, because he's also an interested player as far as the selection process is concerned. But the entire period, in my view, and given the fact that we have, apart from Masit, if she's successful in her petition, in her process, she remains the only commissioner. So I would expect that within 3 months, so by end of April, we should be able to have a new commission in play. And I'm saying this because there are quite a number of things that need to be undertaken by the commission. Forget the by-elections. For me, the by-elections is not a very big problem, because the returning officers of a by-election is not the chair, it's not the commissioners. It is the returning officers in the different regions. They can handle that. They have been given the powers to manage that. Administrative issues can be handled by the Marjan and the rest of the directorate at the secretariat. It is the big policy decisions, such as boundary delimitation process, which is supposed to happen between now and end of December 2024, that require a commission to be there, or any other major policy decision, especially because we are talking about electoral reforms. Yesterday they released a report on evaluation that should set the stage for electoral reforms. Some of the bills which will be developed out of that, which will need to be processed to Parliament, will require some policy decisions. So it is that what Mundalo is saying. The chair has limited powers in terms of making some of those very substantive decisions. He cannot sack anybody, he cannot appoint anybody, but they require the full complement of a commission sooner rather than later. So the president and Parliament cannot afford to rest on their laurels to make a determination of which the commission is going to be like 1 year down the line. Like, that cannot happen like it happened the last time. So I think within 3 months they'll be forced or compelled to make a very quick decision. I think the panel will deliver on its part, but we need both Parliament and the president to also act on their side to ensure that the process is fast-tracked.
All right, and since you've already said your expectations and we are winding up, allow me to give you a minute, Mundalo, to tell us what are your expectations so that we do not hear these threats from commissioners saying that they were threatened, they could not sleep in their homes. Going forward, what should be done? What should we see with the next commission?
That's a very difficult question, because it is a question that speaks a lot, one, to our character ourselves as Kenyans, our attitude towards the election, and also the character of the commission. Because we need to get to a synergy whereby when the commission gives us election results, all of us can be able to trust that those are the election results. We need to get to a point whereby the commission will not be able to give results and then part of the country believes that those are not actually the results. The commission needs to put us in such a place that we don't have a lot of teething problems within them and a lot of things that we can point at for those who are aggrieved by the election results to actually justify their problem, like what happened in the 2022 election. People would be able to point at the commissioners that were not part of the others. People would be able to point at issues like the Kamago issues, and they would be able to justify their case. So for as long as the commission is able to actually come to a position whereby when they declare election results, all of us would be able to believe in those results. And then we as Kenyans need to also work on ourselves in such a manner that we need to really trust the work of the commission. We need to get to a point in this country whereby we would not need candidates to actually have agents. We have one of the most expensive elections in the world. It's one of the most expensive. So it is therefore not incumbent upon even the people vying to actually even have agents. The commission should be so tamper-proof that there will be no need for anybody to have. We have been blamed left, right, and center from the Azimio side during the election that you lost because you didn't have agents. And yet there is no constitutional requirement for anyone to have agents. The IEBC is just supposed to deliver credible elections.
Advice Mundalo, National Youth Chair, Jubilee Party, and Mule Musau, who is the National Coordinator for Election Observation Group. Thank you so much for your time. All right, and that's the end of KTN News Center. Many thanks for watching and for your company. I'm Purity Musenzuke. I'll see you again at 1 o'clock with News Desk. Keep watching KTN News, and God bless.